and employment. So the question this morning is, what does that mean? What does that mean for everyday Americans? Asking, where's the money? Local financial expert Mark Henry from Alloy Wealth Management here is here to break down Powell's key messages and help us understand what consumers should be watching for in the coming months. Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Doing great today.
All right, you were actually in New York. You said you rang the bell.
Yeah,
That's kind of
I was
fun.
up there for the closing ceremony. Yeah,
Wow.
the closing bell ring and all. It was great to participate. It was really fun.
Isn't that fun? That's exciting.
It's exciting. It's just such enthusiasm and stuff. And it's so funny now because it's all like the desk. It's not the way it used to be. It used to be 5,000 people crowded into that room.
Right.
And now it's all digital and screens and stuff, and maybe 150 people.
I was
totally
going to ask,
different.
is it as loud as I think it is? Like
No,
I
it's
imagine
not.
it being
It's-
so like
Right, so
loud.
we're just
like,
hearing
people
it through
and
the
chatter.
computer.
It is, but not what it once was.
Okay.
But it's still really cool. Very
Yeah.
exciting.
Cool, man. That's so cool. All right, so let's talk about the biggest takeaways from Chairman Powell's economic update last week. What are your biggest takeaways here, Mark?
Well, rate cuts are possible, quote unquote, not guaranteed. I personally believe the markets are responding the way they are since the news favorably because they are saying, yes, he's going to finally cut rates. I think it's overdue, but what do I know? So the exciting is we really believe it's going to happen this time.
Okay.
So we could see interest rates go down, and they need to.
All right. How about inflation and then the dynamics with the job market? What does that
well,
mean?
you know, it sounds terrible. Inflation's up, job market's down. Now, when we say inflation's up, keep in mind it's much lower than it was, but it's not at the target rate of 2%, which is what the Fed would like to see. So we're still above that, but we're much less than it was. It doesn't mean, and people get this confused a lot. I hear people saying, well, if inflation's down, why is it still so hard? Prices aren't down. They're just not going up as fast. So always remember, just because you hear inflation's down, it does not mean you're going to pay less at the grocery store.
All right. So we're looking at some uncertainty still,
Yes,
right?
a lot of it actually. That's the thing that's the hardest for the Fed right now, and it's an armchair quarterback. We all want to complain about his decisions, but it's really a lot of uncertainty, and I think we need to brace ourselves for a lot of volatility in both markets and in his decisions because we really don't know exactly what's going to happen.
All right. He didn't make any commitments again to the rate cuts yet, but that we saw that it surged nearly 850 points. What do you think investors are reading into this?
They're reading in he's going to cut the rates. It would help businesses. It would help a lot of things. When think of just the homeowners that would like to maybe refinance, or that maybe are on the fence about buying because they think maybe there is going to be a rate cut. Things like that. There's just so many ways this impacts everybody, whether it's companies or it's individual and families.
All right, so let's talk about families and what this really means for everyday people. If the Fed does cut the rate in September, when would consumers really start feeling the impact?
Well, it's not immediate. So first off, nothing will happen right out of the gate. We have to think about that. However, you will see home loan rates potentially drop. If you've got a higher one, could it be a good time to refinance? Maybe, if you can save enough. So there's things that could happen there. If you've been on the fence about buying one, it may be time to go ahead if you've been waiting. But the things we really want to look at is things like credit cards and stuff like that. Don't look for a significant drop. You've got to get that credit card debt gone. That's where you really need to focus. Just because the rates came down a little bit, oh, it's okay now. No, it's not. Those rates are going to stay high.
Okay, so what should we be doing right now to protect our finances?
I would say you shore up your savings. This is always where it starts. Emergency funds are always first, even before you pay down the debt. You have to have the emergency fund. And unfortunately, a lot of Americans are holding more than they should in just regular savings accounts. We're seeing a lot of that where they just want to have the cash. I totally agree with that, but we got to find a place to make the cash work for you. So there are some high yield savings accounts available. Typically not at your local bank. They're typically online banks, still FDIC insured, but we got to look to make this money go to work for us.
Right. So even if the rates do drop, still the best option.
There's still some good places to put it. And then obviously once we have our debt taken care of and once we have the emergency fund funded and things like that, a good solid spending plan, it's a great time to be in the markets.
All right, that's good to hear. The next Fed meeting, September 16th, 17th, what should we be looking out for for until then?
We should be looking out and hoping for at least a half a point. A lot of people think it'll be a quarter, just a little nudge. I think it's time to cut rates, and let's go for a half a point. So let's all hope and see that happen.
All right, you're so optimistic, Mark. But you remain optimistic on this.
I do. It's look, it's a process, and the tariffs are hurting us in certain ways. Prices are higher because of them. However, we're seeing a higher GDP. We're getting ourselves back in line, so we're paying the price of a long time of not having it, but now we're heading in the direction that we will see some sunlight. We're in a tunnel, but it's not a train. There's going to be the other side, and it's going to be much better, and I really believe that.
All right, like the sound of that. We've been talking about interest rates, what the Fed might do next. Let's take it to Main Street, what that means for parents, maybe waiting for rates to potentially come down and dealing with those rising costs now. Parents in the South, it seems, in a new survey, are spending more on their kids than expected. What are you seeing with maybe some of your clients?
It's hard right now, especially for young people, which is typically the age group that's having the children, obviously. And in North Carolina, it's estimated right now that it's just under $2,000 a month, oh, wow. $21,000 a year to raise a child. And think about that. This is a big number.
Yeah.
It's like mind-boggling, and so many families are concerned. And the birth rate is actually lower than it's been, and a lot of this has to do with what we're talking about right here. It's hard right now.
Yeah. What's driving these increases?
The prices. It's just high, and so the good news is it can still be done, but we have to make good choices, like we talk about with spending plans and things like this. But just go do a couple of my advisors were talking about their young kids in baseball and in the fall ball and in soccer and stuff. The cost is really high.
Oh yeah.
And so one of the tips I have there is simply don't push your child to do something just because you want them to do it. If they're not passionate about it, save the money.
Oh, there you go.
Let's pick something they really want to do, and they don't have to do everything. So let's pick one thing that they're passionate about, and let's invest in that if we have the money available.
Yeah, that's good anyway for just life.
Yeah,
why do something you don't want to do? So from a financial perspective, people are guessing, families are guessing how much to save for their family. From a solid perspective based on facts and what people have, what is the approach here? What should people be doing?
Well, first we have to start, you think about the airplane, they always say if there's something going on, you put the mask on yourself first. Well, with children, it's exactly the same way. And what I mean by that is, yes, we want to get started with a 501 and we want to save for their college. We want to do all these great things. They're all excellent. But if we put the mask on ourselves first, do we have a family emergency fund? Do we have the credit card debt paid off? Are we saving for our own retirement? You have to put yourself ahead of the children, which sounds terrible. It sounds horrible.
No, I get it.
But it's the right decision, because what would be worse than not being able to pay for their college would one day be a burden to them in retirement, making your children take care of you. Who wants to do that? So we have to put the mask on ourselves first. So we get our fiscal house in order first, then we focus on the children. Now, in the meantime, if there's not the money to help them for those things, what can we do? Well, let's help them with the homework. Let's get them a scholarship. Let's work on them when they're in the first grade and second grade and help them become great students.
Yeah.
And that could pay bigger dividends most likely than just saving for a college fund.
Investing in your future, investing in your children's
Correct.
future. Yes, it's all cyclical.
Yeah.
Speaking of the children, back to school season, clothes. I know they're more expensive. Shoes. We're trying to hit some budgets here, but it is hard, like you said. What can parents do then to try to manage these costs?
Well, name brands are always the most popular, and you want your child to fit in, and so there's, I totally understand this. However, I would prefer, if the money's that tight, let's not do the Jordans. Let's find something that's a close second. Let's find the sales, let's find the shops, and only buy what is needed. And the way to do that, when you think about a spending plan, is decide how much we can pay for clothes. How much do we allocate? They have to have them. I totally get it, and they grow so darn fast. So, they outgrow them quickly. So let's put it on paper, and then we allocate this much money. Now let's go, how do we fill that basket with the allocation. So the budget comes first, and I hate that word budget, so we'll call it the spending plan comes first.
Yep.
We have $300 for clothes. So now here's everything the child needs. How do we go get the best, what we want for the $300? Because we're not doing 301 if it's $300. And
Right.
that's how you back into it. You put the number first, then you back into it,
There you go.
checking off the list.
Yeah. I know you're very good about saying a plan, have a plan,
Yep.
stick to the plan. And if you don't have that much more money, if you can't make the cuts,
Right.
then somehow you got to bring more money in.
Right. We have to look at where we're going to do it, or where we're going to bring, what can we cut? If we're out of cutting, we have to bring more money in, which sometimes involves getting some part-time jobs and stuff. Good news is there's places
They're
hiring.
out there.
You know, right now, unemployment, even with the news we had today with inflation high and the jobs growth is not what we want, unemployment's still very low. So you can find, don't listen to the haters, you can find something.
You know what they say about haters?
Yeah, they're going to hate.
Haters are going to hate. If you can give parents one piece of advice this morning dealing with some of these challenges, Mark, what would it be?
The idea of this planning that I talk about so much is this. It's taking control. The freedom you get when you're actually in control of where your dollars go is unbelievable. And for many people, they're always reacting to a situation instead of being proactive to the situation. Think about this. The refrigerator breaks. Oh, now what do? We have to go put it on the credit card. We have to do this. When you take control and you go the refrigerator break, it's the same feeling. You're really upset it broke. However, now we have the emergency fund to go take care of it. You're in charge. Treat your dollars just like they work for you. They're your employees, and you decide where they get spent.